Can start, no? Naina ma'am, with your permission, we are starting with the introduction.
Yes, please start.
Is my screen visible, ma'am?
Yes.
So, good evening, everyone. It is an honor to welcome you all back to the Advanced ART Masterclass. Today, it's a very special topic by a very special speaker. And the topic for today is microbiome mapping in ART, translating evidence into practice. So, we all know Dr. Naina ma'am. And before Vasundhara ma'am introduces ma'am, I just have a couple of quick announcements to make. So as you all always ask, the upcoming master classes are in the month of May. It's tightly packed. We have 3 master classes. One embryology master class. It's by Dr. Charudat Joshi. It's going to be all about incubators. Every aspect that you can think of, sir is going to cover in his master class. There are 2 advanced ART master classes. One is by Dr. Paresh Patel. I'm sorry, the name is missed. He's going to be speaking about ovulation induction, recombinant FSH, and low dose HCG protocols in non IVF cycles. And on 28th May, we are going to have Dr. Shobhana Patel ma'am speak about female fertility preservation. So I know it's summer holidays, but I think it's going to be useful for everyone. And with that, Vasundhara ma'am, would you like to?
Yeah. This time we have a great privilege in introducing a first-time conference on reproductive immunology. It's called the Immune Code 1.0. It's going to happen at Bangalore. Scale is collaborating with Gunashila Global Knowledge Conclave. So we together are planning to conduct a conference on 25th and 26th July, only focused on reproductive immunology. We are looking at 1-day conference, and the second day we are looking at workshop on how to interpret immunological results, and also teaching and training LIT protocols, how to prepare LIT and everything. So we have dedicated national and international speakers. So we will confirm all the details of the talk and everything shortly with you. Sindhu, can you share Madam's CV? Welcome you all tonight for the masterclass series. And as clinicians working in the field of reproductive medicine, we are increasingly confronted with one fundamental questions: that why do morphologically normal embryos, sometimes euploid embryos transferred into a well-prepared endometrium, still fail to implant? So there's a lot of emerging literature evidence that says that there could be some microbial environment that can be undergoing dysbiosis, wherein we don't know whether it is the lactobacillus dominans that is predominantly implicated in implantation success. So many studies are coming up in terms of RNA sequencing and also genomic profiling of the endometrium to assess the receptivity. And tonight's session is going to be focusing on microbiome mapping in ART, translating evidence into practice. And it is designed specifically for us as clinicians to move beyond the research and ask, what do we do with the information in our with this particular information of microbiome in our consultation rooms, and how do we treat our patients based on this information? And to lead this discussion, we're extremely privileged to have with us Dr. Naina Patel Madam, who is the medical director of Akansha Fertility Research Institute, with decades and decades of experience in the field of ART. And Madam is a well-known field in this reproductive medicine, with so many chapters and publications to her credit. She is an invited TED speaker, Oprah Winfrey Show, Josh Talk, number of research papers to her credit, trained loads and loads of students across the country, and she is well known for her research in stem cell and bone marrow therapy, one of the first to publish this paper on thin endometrium. And her fields of interest is regenerative medicine, gut microbiome. So none other than Madam can do justice to this particular topic, and ovarian and endometrial biomarkers and PCOS. Over to you, Madam. We are extremely thankful. She's also the president of Gujarat Society of Obs and Gynae, and also a founder president of Gujarat chapter of ISAR. Indeed, a great honor to have you back for this Scale Masterclass series. Welcome you, Madam.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Vasundhara, for that wonderful introduction, and congratulations on conducting such lovely programs. Without wasting much time, I think I will start with the topic that has been given to me. So, microbiome mapping in ART, translating evidence into practice. So, we have done some research on our own, and it's a huge thing, which I don't think we will be able to do the justice. But yes, this is opening up, and this could be the future. So there are trillions of bacteria, viruses, fungi, and microorganisms, and it influences the overall well-being. And now there has been some light shed on its impact on reproductive functions, hormone regulations, ovarian function, and embryo implantation. And it is suggested that any imbalance or dysbiosis in the gut microbiome could lead to reproductive disorders like PCOS, endometriosis, and sperm quality. And we know that fertility is influenced by hormonal, immune, metabolic, and environmental factors. And the gut microbiota regulates the hormonal, immune, and metabolic factors. And that's why it can impact the implantation and pregnancy outcome, including recurrent implantation failure. Previously thought that it is a passive thing, but we know now it is a dynamic, essential system which regulates all this, even influences the brain development and affects the therapy response, whatever we're giving to the patient across the lifespan. Gut microbiota is also responsible for host homeostasis as a protective guardian, and it can contribute to the pathologies impacting all these systems. So now there are thoughts that we could have therapeutic strategies like phage therapy, live biotherapeutics, precise nutrition, microbiota transplant, which can help prevent a disease or treat a disease targeting the microbial functions. So this clinical translation is now getting into probiotics, prebiotics, bacteriophage therapy, and microbiotic transplantation. But these are limited by high inter-individual variability. I'll tell you the challenges. The challenges are that can be influenced by the diet, veg, non-veg, vegan, etc., the genetic makeup of the person, the demography where you are staying, the age, and the usage of antibiotics. Hence, it limits the reproducibility and universal applications. Multi-omics and sequencing can improve the mechanistic and link the microbiome to disease risk and host resilience. At birth only, the neonatal gut microbiome is influenced by the mode of delivery. If it's vaginal, there will be seeding of the lactobacillus from the vagina with rich colonization. But if it's a C-section, it is the skin microbiota predominantly which will seed in. So the early altered microbiome can increase risk of immune and metabolic disorders, though it stabilizes to adult stage by 2 to 3 years. Even breastfeeding or top feeding can shape the gut microbiome. It provides breastfeeding essential nutrients, maternal microbes, and bioactive factors. And HMO, human milk oligosaccharides, promotes beneficial colorization to support the immune system development. So C-section can alter it, and they are exploring the vaginal microbiota transfer as vaginal seeding after the C-section, trying to restore maternal microbial colonization. Now let us come to this is the background that I have given. So what is a human body? It is a superorganism. It is made of visible organs and all the invisible microbes, that is the bacteria, viruses, and fungi that reside within and in the body. So if you see, visible organs are just 23,000 genes, but the invisible microbiome is 9 million genes. This to put together can make the human body. And of the bacteria that are 8 million, what we say, genes, 99% are beneficial, only 1% pathogenic. And the human genes, 22,000 with fungi, and the archaea will make it a complex whole microbiome. We have oral microbiome, the placental, which can be responsible for preterm birth, chorioamnitis, velitis, torch infections, vaginal microbiome for vaginosis, XTD, yeast infection, and for us, more importantly, the cause for recurrent implantation failure. And finally, I come to gut microbiome, which can lead to obesity, metabolic disorder, diabetes, cancer, inflammatory disease, psychiatric disorders, and now even the reproductive function. So all diseases begin in the gut. This is what Hippocrates said in long back. And our Ayurveda, 3,000-year-old, the Indian traditional medicine system says the amma, the undigested fermented substance that accumulate in the gut is the root cause of all internal diseases, and Ayurveda targets this. I remember as a child, very young, small, whenever I was sick, my mother would want me to take to an Ayurveda and my father would want a conventional medicine. My mother would always win because she will have the last word and she will take me to the Ayurvedic doctor who will take my pulse, ask me to show the tongue, and we know how important it is, and then palpate my abdomen. I'll say I have headache or I have fever. What has that to do with the abdomen? And the first comment he would say that kachra kahin jaake kha liya hai. So that means he relates everything to the gut. And then whatever it is, he will give that bitter medicine and everything, and your fever also gets treated and your gut also gets treated, whatever it is. So gut has got a lot to do. Even if you get the ulcers in the mouth, you will see that that is related to the gut, which gives to other symptoms in the body. Now, if we see the density of the bacteria in the gut, it keeps on increasing till you go to the small and the large intestine, hosting more than trillion bacteria and hundreds of species, most of which are facultative and aerobes. So bacteroids and firmicutes make the major chunk, and small part by archaea, actinovirico, and fusobacteria. These are the dominant phyla inhabitants. The gut microbiome, as said, affected by all this: aid, diet, demography, but malnutrition also, and antibiotics, probiotics. And it has an interaction with the genetic human genome. If the gut is healthy, the human genome will be healthy. If diseased, it can be diseased. And what is the critical role in homeostasis, metabolism, and defense? You can see so many critical role it has, from promotion of fat storage, angiogenesis, immune system, biosynthesis of vitamins, metabolism of therapeutics, modification of nervous system, resistance to pathogens, protection against epithelial injury, and modulation of bone mass index. All these diseases, ALS, heart disease, Parkinson's, diabetes, cancer, autoimmunity, has been related to the gut. But what about infertility? So look at the background of infertility and gut microbiosis. PCOS, yes, there are publications. Endometriosis, yes, but when we started this study about 5-6 years back, there were no studies relating it to repeated implantation failure. So we looked at the publications that were there on polycystic ovary syndrome and gut microbiota, and we found that the gut microbiota dysbiosis with reduced diversity will increase the gut permeability, leading to metabolic endoxemia, activation of the immune system inflammation, hyperinsulinemia, hyperandrogenism, which is the root cause of obesity as well as PCOS. But as soon as you take this high fat, low fiber, you get fat fiber, you see this. But you change it, and then the reverse can happen. So possible mechanism is shown over here, and we can find out that, yes, this is the root cause of PCOS. This is the study for endometriosis, comparison of vaginal, cervical, and gut microbiota between women who are healthy controls and women who have stage 3 and 4 endometriosis. And what they found, that dysbiosis leads to increased oxygen circulation, estrogen levels in the circulation, and estrogen high is the culprit in endometriosis, in PCOS. that will lead, endometriosis specifically, it will lead to further growth of the active ectopic endometriotic foci and the inflammatory activity. So it is possible that the gut microbiota with their role in the regulation of the estrogen cycle can be suggested with endometriosis along with epigenetic, immunologic and biochemical functions. So now we decided to look at the gut dysbiosis with implantation failure. Implantation failure could be unexplained infertility, it could be recurrent implantation failure, and what I will say is this is recurrent pregnancy loss. So it is the recurrent reproductive failure, RRF, unexplained infertility, RIF and RPL together. RIF, we know the definition is 2 to 3 good quality embryo transfers, and the latest says that we should consider the maternal age also. There are evidence of vaginal microbiome and endometrial microbiota studies. So vaginal microbiota, low diversity, lactobacillus dominant ecosystem. And if there is changes like Lactobacillus crispetus, Jensenii and Gezeri are good, but inners are bad. This helps in maintaining the vaginal pH. So now vaginal transplantation already happened in Denmark, though the protocol is not being shared, and they say that has good results in repeated vaginal bacterial vaginosis from a healthy vagina. They have done the transplant that could restore the lactobacillus dominance. That is what we want. These are other evidences, and if we look at the vaginal microbiota, we will see that the high vaginal bacteria diversity, it is the success rate will increase. So when we look at the endometrium should have more than 95% lactobacilli. If it is so, it is have a high result. But if there is more than 95% non-lactobacillus in the uterus, in the endocervix and ectocervix, the success rate of IVF drops. So the question for us to motivate to do this study was that does the composition of gut bacteria correlate with implantation failure? So we decided to do a study on fertile versus infertile women, and we chose the infertile women who had RIF or unexplained infertility because these are the two frequent and frustrating problems where we may not have some answer every time. So this was the publication in BMC Women's Health, where distinct gut and vaginal microbiota profile in women with recurrent implantation failure and unexplained infertility, published in 2022. This, we selected 11 fertile control women who were no problem, 10 RIF and 10 unexplained infertility women. Unexplained infertility, we did the standard tests of ovulation, tubal patency, and normal sperms, and we removed any gross abnormality like fibroid, congenital anomalies, adenomyosis, polyps, tuberculosis, and severe endometriosis. So the age group of the patient in control definitely is young. In RIF was much higher, in unexplained was 31. BMI in RIF was higher than by in unexplained, and this duration of marriage not applicable in control, but in RIF, and this was 9 years and 7 years. And IVF cycle count in RIF was 3+, whereas unexplained could be 1, maybe not. The dietary information, as it's Gujarat and mostly vegetarian, was the same in control in RIF, but in unexplained, there were 9 vegetarian with non-veg 1. And this is how we used to call the patient. The same day we used to take the buccal mucosa, collect the stool. Sometimes we had to send the girls at home to collect the stool because patient didn't want to travel with fecal samples, and prepare their lysate, store it in a proper place, then do the 16S RNA sequencing. Research says that using 16S ribosomal RNA sequencing is a fast, inexpensive profiling technique based on variation in the bacterial 16S RNA gene. And this method is highly being used, including to characterize the bacterial population, taxonomical analysis, and species identification. So we found out the alpha diversity and beta diversity. Alpha is within the sample, how much diversity is there, and beta is between the samples. So this I will not go into the details. So, and then we studied the phylum level. So if you see Firmicutes in the blue, that are the maximum, but it changes in RIF patients and it changes in the unexplained patient compared to the control. And at the genus level, this is more important. We found that the bacteroids were high in RIF and unexplained. Prevotella, which is very good bacteria, is reduced in RIF and unexplained, and Hungatella is increased in both, and the other Rhuminococcus and Suterella were decreased. If we compare it the control, the composition of the gut microbiome, we found that in control, if it is 2, RIF is 2.8, and unexplained it is 9.2, the bacteroids. Prevotella, which is 5.4 in control because it is a good bacteria beneficiary, is very low in RIF 0.7 and unexplained is even lower 0.63. So this is how, and Hungatella also keeps on increasing from control RIF to unexplained. So this is the Prevotella, which is the beneficiary. This is the pathogenic. So this is high in the RIF and unexplained. So what we observed was decreased alpha diversity in the infertile groups as compared to control. No significant change in the beta diversity, but increase in the proteobacteria and bacteroids in unexplained, and decrease in Firmicutes in unexplained as compared to RIF, but a substantial reduction in Prevotella genus and substantial increase in Bacteroid genus belonging to Bacteroides phyla was associated with implantation-related infertility. So this is the first ever investigation on gut bacteria and implantation failure. We correlated with the gut dysbiosis with these two RIF and UI, and we found this, that Prevotella was low and increase in bacteroids. Now we wanted to investigate that how is this linked. So we looked at the hypothesis. One could be immune overactivation and inflammatory systemic through the leaky gut. I will explain that, and the hormone imbalance. So this recurrent pregnancy loss is associated with the leaky gut, so novel pathogenic model of endometrial inflammation. This paper concluded that leaky gut might occur in RPL. This is recurrent pregnancy loss. We further extrapolated to RIF. And will it allow passage into circulation of immune triggers, potentially able to elicit endometrial innate immune response and contribute to miscarriage pathogenesis? So we might look at the intestinal disorders to improve the endometrial environment and pregnancy outcome. This was a small sample size study that we had, and fecal samples were used as proxies for the bacterial content of the entire GI, and the limitations of the food questionnaires must be recognized, and few clinical parameters. But a future work with large sample size, which already we are doing for PCOS and RIF, and analysis of the bacterial metabolites as butyrate, acetate, and lactate, measurement of cytokines and immune molecules, and test hypothesis by implanting fecal samples from infertile patients into germ-free mice. So this is that hypothesis which I am talking about, that when you take, when the gut has high amount of Prevotella, you can see that the butyrate will be secreted, and it is mucin synthesis. So it will maintain the tight junctions over here. But if bacteroids are high, it will secrete the propionate, succinate, and acetate. It will cause mucus degradation. This will alter the permeability, and that will give rise to inflammatory response and autoimmunity. See, the leaky gut when you have high bovine, high fat diet. But if you have a high fiber diet, this mucin level will be very well maintained, not like this. And hence there will be no leaking, and it will give anti-inflammatory response and Treg differentiation. So whenever there is a leaky gut, there will be increased TNF alpha, reduced IL-10, and it will lead to implantation failure causing an inflamed endometrium. So what are the treatment? Nowadays, we all have started using prebiotics. We advise probiotics, antibiotics as and when required. We know at the time of implantation, some inflammation is required, but immediately then it should come down. Dietary changes, why Mediterranean diet and why milk-free diet, etc. are advised. Then engineered bacteria, bacteriophage, you include bacteria which will eat up the harmful bacteria, and fecal transplant is one more possibility. So we looked at our own traditional Indian medicine, the Ayurvedic Panchkarma, because it basically cleans up the gut. So there is Rakta Mokshan, Vaman, Virechan, Nasya, Baste. And we saw a lot of papers where Ayurvedic Panchkarma was useful for skin disorders, chronic disorders. So we thought, why not apply the same? We have a Panchkarma department now in our hospital, and we have Ayurvedic doctors whom we asked to research. And when we found out, we started studying, analyzing 25 RIF patients with Panchkarma therapy so that it can be an adjunct to in vitro fertilization in improving pregnancy outcomes in patients with recurrent implantation failure. Excuse me. So this is the Ayush department that we have at our clinic. The possible mechanisms by which Panchkarma can improve gut microbiome is detoxification, that is Virechan. What is purgation? Basti is medicated enema. So what will it do? It will eliminate the emma and toxins, purge harmful substances and pathogens from the gut. And this will reduce systemic inflammation and improve gut barrier integrity. The anti-inflammatory effects will be that there are certain medicines which we give herb. So here they have mentioned Triphala, Ashwagandha, Gudichi. We have our own medication that will reduce, that will have anti-inflammatory, immunomodulatory properties. So we know TH1 is not good, TH17 is not good. So it will balance the ratio of TH1, TH2 and the TH17 and the Treg. TH2 and Treg we want more. The gut barrier repair, especially Basti, it can aid in healing the intestinal mucosa and tight junctions, improving gut permeability. And a healthy gut lining helps prevent endotoxin-induced inflammation, which is implicated in implantation failure. Microbiome modulations. So certain herbs are used which are prebiotic, and that is natural. So it will promote the growth of bacteria which are beneficial, such as lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, and enhance the SCFs, fatty acids, small chain fatty acids, especially the butyrate, which improves endometrial receptivity. Then stress reduction, which is also very good, the Manasika Shuddhi, which will do mind calming Panchakarma, the Shirodhara, the Nasya, and the diet, and modulate the gut-brain axis, reducing cortisol and sympathetic tone that negatively impact gut flora and uterine receptivity. Hormonal regulation, by improving liver detox, adrenal pituitary ovarian axis balance, Panchkarma will positively affect estrogen metabolism. I said estrogen is the culprit, which will indirectly influence microbiota that thrive in hormone-rich environments like the vaginal and gut flora, and immune rebalancing. A healthier microbiome supports immune tolerance at the maternal fetal intervals, and Panchkarma may help correct immune dysregulation. This is what we test: high TNF alpha, ANA. And I said gut dysbiosis is associated with autoimmune diseases. NK cells observed in RIF by modulating mucosal immunity. Scientific basis supporting this. So potential mechanisms by which Panchkarma improve is detoxification, which is Virechan, Basti purged. So gut microbiota, endometrium axis, which emerges, shows the gut microbiota influences estrogen cycling, inflammation, and immune responses, which is critical to embryo implantation. Microbiomes have been studied in RIF, which we also showed our publication, and often the dysbiosis will decrease in beneficial microbes and increase the inflammatory one. And several Ayurvedic herbs showing prebiotic or antimicrobial activity are known to enhance gut microbial diversity in animal as well as human models. So this 6 which I have talked: detoxification effects, anti-inflammatory, gut barrier repair, microbiome modulation, stress reduction, and hormone and immune regulation. So then we started a study on 10 patients with RIF ranging from 21 to 45. We took even donor egg cycles, medically cleared for participation in Virechan, Uttar Basti and Basti therapies. Informed consent and willingness was taken for this. It is almost 45 days therapy. And we found that the pregnancy outcome out of 25, when we again did the embryo transfer, 19 had healthy outcomes. So 76% success rate. There was almost a 6 kilogram body weight. Endometrial thickness also showed improvement with uterine blood flow, which was lower after the treatment PIRI, and endometrium perfusion almost doubled, increased from 40 to 80%. Menstrual cycles regular for some, and AMH levels also became stable. So this is the weight reduction and the endometrial thickness graph, and this is the color Doppler pre and post Panchkarma. So the predicted mechanism is that there will be increased uterine blood flow with vasodilation via nitrous oxide, reduced vascular resistance, weight loss because the metabolism is improved, there is reduced inflammation and detoxification. Menstrual regularity improved because it has an effect on HPO axis, the estrogen dysbiosis that we have talked, and the hormonal balance. Endometrial thickness increase because there is enhanced nutrient delivery with reduced oxidative stress. Cervical mucus quality is improved because of the estrogen support and improved hepatic clearance. Stress relief, cortisol modulation, better neuroendocrine control. Stable AMH, no adverse effect on the ovary. That is what we wanted to show. And improved pregnancy rate, 76% synergistic effect of all above mechanisms. The conclusion was that there is potential benefits of Panchkarma as an adjunctive treatment for RIF and has a promising complementary approach to conventional IVF to improve reproductive health and outcomes. We need larger size studies to confirm this and explore the mechanisms involved. So what we decided now is that we are having an ongoing trial with Gujarat Biotechnology GBU in Gandhinagar. And the study design is to investigate the impact of Panchkarma on gut microbiome, inflammatory markers, hormonal profiles in RIF pre and post treatment. So RIF 50 control patients, controls 50 and pilot study. And we have also started simultaneously PCOS study. PCOS woman is one extra and some dietary changes are some extra. And we are exploring the metagenomics. We are seeing the stool also. And we are seeing the inflammatory markers, TNF-alpha, IL-6 and CRP, and hormones, estradiol, progesterone, AMH and FSH. Expected outcomes, we will see that it could be enhanced implantation potential via microbiota rionis and improved hormonal this thing. So conclusion is Panchkarma may have novel integrative approach in RIF, but large cohort studies are required. By June, I think, or by December, we'll be able to complete all the patients, and the analysis of the first 1.5 year patients have already started to come in. But challenges are unpredictable effects on microbiota balance. Sometimes we may, by giving therapy, could be doing pathogen overgrowth gene transfer. These are just assumptions. Whether you give probiotic, whether you do fecal transplant, or whether you give prebiotics, or whether you give the Panchkarma, whatever it is. But mostly this is the fecal therapy which could risk this much. So these all are benign therapies. What you are giving, probiotics, prebiotics, that will not have the adverse effect. But if you think the gene transfer, or if you think of fecal transplant, or an oral capsule where the feces of a healthy control is taken and through endoscopy put into the esophagus, this could have unpredictable effect of microbiota balance, pathogen overgrowth, gene transfer, fecal transfer, that is fecal microbiome transplant, and strict donor screening will be required, regulatory and standardization of the issues, and need to balance efficacy with safety. This is mainly for FMT, fecal microbiome transfer. Once again, I say the large size studies are needed and we have to do, and that is what we are doing for PCOS and for RIF patients. Thank you for the patient hearing. And now you can ask anything about this, which is still very new and which has still a long way to go before it becomes a reality, like fecal transplant.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that extensive lecture and lot of research that you're doing, which is some things are not comprehensible by common people, but then it's too much of research that is going on in the field of microbiome in RIF, RPL, because people are not really able to, open the black box of why implantation is not happening even in a euploid embryo. So that has given rise to so much of research, and it is very interesting to know that our Ayurvedic system like Panchakarma and other things are quite benefiting. But then though it's a small scale study, I can understand the implications that how it is causing a leaky gut and how that is reducing the inflammation and things like that. Ma'am, I just wanted to ask you a question, like in RAF patients, do you recommend a particular diet, say gluten-free diet or a dairy-free diet that is going to reduce the inflammation by decreasing the bacteroids and controlling the inflammation? Is there any particular diet that
Yes,
we follow
people
or
say
recommend?
Mediterranean. For our patients, we say green leafy vegetables, all different colored vegetables. Go for protein diet and cut down on your carbs. And if you have to take carbs, take it in the afternoon between 12 to 4, not in the morning, not in the night.
Okay. How many days prior you start a discussion and how long you continue?
Okay, so once RIF is diagnosed, we put, and so first the counseling and the medications and everything. So total, it's a 45 days protocol that we follow. After that, she has also some medications to continue. Once that finishes, but that is simple, Shatavari and all that. But we can start the transfer process also at the same time. But we take the samples, and then the patient herself says, I've lost weight, there is glow on my face, and I'm comfortable. And some of the patients wanted to wait after this, and we have had not this group, but other patients where there was natural conception also possible just after Panchkarma without pregnancy loss.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, as we know that currently there's no universally accepted standardized protocol for endometrial microbiome sampling. And also the timing when you do the sampling, like related to the menstrual cycle, the catheter contamination, the cervical flora, so on and so forth. So how do you ensure that reliability of the results, and how do you have to retest? It's so confusing.
For us, the endometrial microbiota we studied with this bacteria, that is the most challenging part because it is not reproducible. But once they follow this diet, definitely there are changes. We have got certain kits now available, so kits, etc., which will say what bacteria are there. Or you take the ELIS test where you can find out what type of bacteria, etc., are there. But it is dynamic. First, we thought it is not. So it can keep changing. You travel somewhere, you come back, you have had a bad lifestyle, it changes. Again, you go for that 3 months healthy lifestyle, it changes. You take pre-probiotic, changes. You take hormone, it changes. So that is why the reproducibility is less, but it is confirmed that it has an effect, and therefore some treatment pertaining to organize the dysbiotic gut is important.
So there's a question
Yes,
there.
we
Madam,
can club because the Ayurvedic medicines that are given after this 45 days are quite safe for pregnancy.
ma'am, what is your experience about male factor, ma'am, seminal microbiome and
Yeah, there also we give this lifestyle changes which indirectly does affect the gut. And the studies are coming up now that what gut dysbiosis they also have.
so do they study seminal microbiome the way we study the
I have no
endometrial?
idea on that. We have not done that. We only see for
Because we see
first
many
test.
andrologists prescribe some prebiotics, probiotics, some androbiome, and so many things. So it's quite
No, I'm not aware of it.
confusing.
We have not been prescribing that to males.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. So routinely for PCOS patients and endometriosis patients, are we right in prescribing probiotics
Definitely. Along with their
along
lifestyle
with
changes.
lifestyle changes?
Yes.
Ma'am, tell us a few practical points on how we read
I'm
these
sorry I
results.
did not cover the whole of this because it's a long talk if you go with all the gut microbiota
No,
and
ma'am,
all
it was
this.
very comprehensive, ma'am. You explained
What is needed for infertility
the
because
pathology, microbiology, everything of what is behind the importance of this, ma'am. It was extremely comprehensive, ma'am. It was not less in any way.
so yes, the tips for what you were asking.
Yes, ma'am. So we lot of companies come with lot of uh,
Add-ons.
add-ons, and also this lactobacillus species are so many. So they say we have added ginseng, we have
Crispestus is
added
the best that you can add, but that
crispattus.
makes the size very big of the
Uh,
capsule. That is the biggest problem.
And how many colony forming units? And some people, they say we need to refrigerate it. Some people say if you don't
Yes,
refrigerate
there
it,
are some
the
which we
potency of
need
the
to
drug is.
refrigerate, not all you need to refrigerate. The composition is different of each. Some may be good for just vaginal bacteriosis that we are doing. Some may be good to just balance the bacteria that are in the vagina. So you may not need everything for everyone. If you go to premature delivery and vaginal infection, there is a huge data and study in it.
Okay. Okay.
Infertility also, a lot of publications are now coming up, but a vaginal transplant of the microbiome from healthy to this has still not come up. People are working on preparing capsule, preparing directly how they put it in the vagina, thin microfilm, and then let it grow. But still, no large studies.
There is a question on the chat box. Can allopathic practitioners prescribe Ayurvedic drugs or any instructions has to be given to the patient
Yes,
before starting?
you have to hire Ayurvedic doctors. Like they cannot practice allopathy, we cannot practice that.
Okay.
Though we
What,
guide them, but we cannot practice it.
what is your opinion about vaginal probiotic versus oral probiotic?
I think both are necessary. There are reasons for this. Oral probiotic will take care of overall. What we described is that it takes care of the mental, when the gut improves, everything from mental to stress to hormones to liver detoxification, everything. Whereas vaginal is very locally acting. So we need that also, and we need oral also. So it depends. Like you cannot give vaginal for a long time, but yes, you can give oral for a long time.
Ma'am, someone's asked, can you elaborate the dose schedule? I think they mean for the probiotics. I'm not sure what they mean.
How many days should we give the probiotics, especially if you look at RIF, RPL, or unexplained? Like, what is the
I mean, if you
recommendation?
give probiotics along with them, you should also ask the patient to go for the lifestyle changes. If the person doesn't change the diet, it is not going to matter whatever it is. But for me, whenever I'm planning an IUI or IVF, I start for the patient immediately. So that they are spending on it, why not add this little extra along with the dietary changes? But for a normally timed intercourse patients, in the first go, I do not start the probiotics. And if you are starting it, you can continue. Sometimes you feel that there is still, you can change the combination because there are 3, 4 number of combinations now available. So you can change and find out.
If people want practical tips, they are asking about Combinom, which is a oral probiotic of Abet versus Evanu, that Zuventus
Evaluate
company, which
vaginal,
is
which you have
vaginal
to
probiotic.
refrigerate it. Yeah.
So
Even
your
Evanu we give during pregnancy also for
yes, to
preterm prevention of
factory
preterm
vaginos.
this thing. It's
Yes.
always better when a patient has a history of RPL or patient has a history of preterm deliveries to keep it all throughout the pregnancy on oral probiotics and vaginal. We do a course every month for 1 week, 8 days Evanu.
So at any point when you have had this thing of testing Emma and Alice and you've encountered dysbiosis and you've treated them, is there a role to retest, ma'am? It is quite expensive and
No, I never do retesting. I never do because it's very, very expensive.
expensive.
You can do the full this endometritis protocol, or you can just do the targeted bacteria protocol, whatever it is. But I never repeat. Even if they say the window is not that and change and you do this and then again check it, I will not do it.
And if at all we have to test, which part of the cycle should we actually test the microbiome, ma'am? When you're doing endometrial
I think
microbiome
mid-cycle
testing?
is the best. Mid-cycle is the best.
How many days prior to IUI do you start the probiotics, ma'am? Is there anything
As
like
soon as
that?
I plan, the same cycle, the same. IVF naturally it's 1 month
1
prior
month.
that we do because we know none of the patient is going to agree immediately and do it.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. It was such a evolving topic that you gave us a lot of practical insights, and we are extremely curious to know about your
I didn't
research
go for other
outcomes.
publications because there were so many publications, and to prepare that was a big task. So I just gave my experience from what we have done.
No, it is quite nice to know that we can continue using and give a monthly dose of vaginal probiotic to prevent preterm birth. These
That
are all
is our
practical
protocol.
tips that is very, very good for all of us. And also, when we treat chronic endometritis with a particular antibiotic, it is always good to add a probiotic along with it, right, ma'am?
Yes, yes, definitely, definitely. Anybody else wants to give a tip? It's an interactive session. We will learn.
Mhm. Minimal
If they
duration.
become positive, we continue. So this is a good question.
Mhm.
We start before in RIF patients. After this, even the panchkarma is done or they've not done it and lifestyle changes, we start this irrespective of when they are taking the transfer with the dietary changes. And post pregnancy, we continue almost till 6-7 months. After that,
Probiotics.
only if it's indicated, we give. But at least 5 to 6 months, definitely we continue.
That's really wonderful to know, ma'am. And also, we'll wait to know more of your research outcomes, which you said you'll be
Yeah, this
sharing
is
with us
going
in
to,
June.
by next year, June, July, we should be ready with at least a part of it. It's because it's a vast study that we are doing now with many patients and so many analyses going on simultaneously.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for
Thanks,
taking
ma'am.
time out to share your knowledge with us. It means a lot, ma'am.
Thank you for having me over here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, all the delegates. Thank you for all the practical tips. And thanks, all the delegates, for being with us this evening with Madam. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
ma'am. Good
Thank
night,
you.
ma'am.
Night.